the crew that's here from MCPS TV is here to record to kind of keep us honest a little bit with some of the questions so that we keep a running total of some of the questions that get asked and that we can provide some answers or some of the comments and feedback. Something that's really important to me, and you'll learn this a little bit about me as the evening goes on, is I may not know all the answers to your questions. I may not even have a response for you. I'll do my best to find out. But I'm still learning for sure. I definitely want there to be a record of what you said out of transparency regardless. So these fine folks are here to make sure that that happens. And I'll share some resources of where you can find all of this stuff. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to do a couple of things first. If you've got a mobile phone or a smartphone or something along those lines and you don't mind doing a little sign-in, we'd love to know that you are here. And candidly, we're going to ask some information. We may even ask your zip code because some of the feedback that we're going to be collecting this evening is kind of drives some of my priorities in terms of things that I do next as a leader of the school system. And so the information that you share does give me a good glimpse of our community. And candidly, I want to be very responsive to every corner of our community, not just one geographic area and not just representative of one group's specific background. I want to make sure that we're responsive to a lot of folks. I do want to introduce this evening, we have an ASL interpreter. If there's anybody who requires ASL interpretation, she'll be doing some sign language up front, and we're more than happy to accommodate that. We also have some support with Spanish translation if that's needed as well. Just need to indicate that, and we'll make sure that's supported. Along those same lines, I do want to welcome you. This is not about hearing so much from me, although I do have a few things to share, but really an opportunity for me to hear from you. I am still very much reacclimating to Montgomery County, and I say reacclimating because I grew up here. This is not my first trip to Poolesville, although this is definitely my first trip to this building in Poolesville. I do remember the old high school, the part that's over there, and do have fond memories of that experience. I grew up in Bethesda. I went to BCC High School, and definitely played a lot of sports out here. The running joke back then was when you were commuting from Bethesda for a sporting event that you might as well pack an overnight bag because you're going to be in the bus for a really long time. But I had a great experience growing up as a kid in Montgomery County. The educators that I had changed my life. They turned me into an educator, turned me into a teacher, developed my system of values along with my family, and really kind of pointed me in a great direction. And like every young person who wants to go out and explore, I tried to leave Montgomery County as a young person and go and do things. So I spent my entire educational career as a school person in Virginia until this year, where I've been trying to spend a lot of my adulthood trying to get back to Montgomery County because Montgomery County is such a great place. I am thrilled to be the superintendent because I do see Montgomery County as a place where there are endless possibilities. And there's a tremendous opportunity for Montgomery County to step back on top. And I do mean this with all sincerity, that we have to confront some really not great parts about Montgomery County in order for us to address some of the critical issues for us to go back on top. Because this used to be a really high-performing school district. It is in some pockets. But overall, it's not as high-performing as it used to be, and it's going to need a lot of care and attention for us to get back in that space again. But I am eternally optimistic about the things that we can do moving forward. So I do have a website. and this is where we'll be putting a lot of feedback. This is Chris. He's from our communications office. He's going to be taking down some notes in addition to the recording that we're going to have, and we're going to land those notes and feedback that we've got on this website so that you can go and take a look later on to see that it's there, and if we can find some responses to some questions, we'll add those as well. But really, this is a great opportunity for you to share your thoughts. I think it's important before we begin and before we kind of get into some of the questions and comments, because we really only have like an hour together, is I wanted to share some guiding principles and some things that are important to me. And looking back at this, I did something similar the first time that I became a school principal. And I became a high school principal in Charlottesville, Virginia. And in that space, it was a really challenged environment. It had a high farms percentage, a large percentage of the student body attended that actually were served by public housing, nearly 50%. And then a large percentage also were a part of the university community. It was a pretty complex space. And I went back and I looked over some of my notes of some of the things that were driving some of my belief structure as a new principal. And this list hasn't really changed a whole lot since then. This is who I am as a person. This is what I believe. These are the things that are important to me. And I hope that you see these things represented in the actions that I take, not just the words that I say. It would be a big stretch for me to say, oh, you should trust me, I'm your new school superintendent. I actually don't think that that's healthy. I would only ask that you give me the opportunity to earn your trust over time, and that I demonstrate for you things that we can grow together over time. So a couple of points that I want to share, and we've got extra copies if you're looking for that. I'm also not much for the glossy documents that MCPS is really good at putting out. I much prefer the single space 12-point font action plan that's not very colorful, but the communications team does a nice job, so we're going to let them shine today. Sorry. Some things that are really important to me is that we center a lot of our decision-making around what's great for our students. And unfortunately, when we have organizations that are led by adults, oftentimes a lot of decisions get made that are in the best interest of adults and not necessarily the best interest of the kids that we serve. And I'm hoping that my leadership brings kind of a renewed sense of focus on making decisions that are really in the best interest of serving kids within the constraints that we have, within the resources that we have, within a whole host of things, but that the focus of our decision making really needs to be about that. You'll see this a lot from me, that community I really see as an extension of family. Community has always been important to me. The folks that I went to school with, the friends that I've made along the way, they're still friends today. And it's about building community. You'll very rarely hear me focus just on MCPS, because I think that the work that we do in the school system actually makes the county better, not just the school system. And so it's a little bit of a delicate balancing act, because we have to look at the county as a whole, not just the school system, when we're making decisions about what happens in the school system. And a lot of that has to do with some of the services that the county has to provide. I think all too often it's really easy to get caught up in the fact that the school system requires a lot of resources to run. Well, the county also requires a lot of resources to run as well, and we kind of need to have a holistic view and a holistic image of what that looks like. And so to that end, lifting up as many voices in our community as possible. I got to tell you, MCPS has always had, and Montgomery County has always had really high expectations for its school system. Even when I was a kid, really high expectations. The people who live in Montgomery County want a great school system. And I will say this too, Montgomery County has always risen to meet the needs of the school system to the best of its ability when they can. They really have. They've answered the call. But one of the areas that we've struggled is hearing voices from areas of the community that have been historically marginalized. It's not been a strength of ours. That's actually been a huge weakness. And, you know, we have a lot of voices that have kind of been drowned out in some spaces, and I hope that we have a culture that's a little bit different and a little bit more focused on hearing from lots of different spaces in the community. It's no mistake that my first meeting like this is in Poolesville, because Poolesville is a community that sometimes gets drowned out by other communities, yes? Okay. So it's not a mistake, it's not coincidence, it's not anything but intention that we are starting here, because Poolesville is just as an important corner of Montgomery County as other corners in Montgomery County, and I just want you to know that. I think that leadership is critically important to making better decisions to help us get better. Very frequently, I tell the people that I work with that you don't have to be the best at everything. Matter of fact, you can't be the best at everything. It's actually impossible to be the best at everything. But you do have to be the best at one thing, and that's being the best at getting better. So if every day we're getting a little bit better than we were the day before, we're going to be making some pretty significant progress in a short period of time. And that's really what I'm hoping to bring to Montgomery County is a continuous improvement mindset where we are ratcheting up in an iterative way to bring better results than what we've gotten in the last couple years. I'm going to close by saying this. And then we're going to move into some questions, and I get to hear you all talk. If we look back at the last couple of years in Montgomery County, we've had a lot going on since the COVID pandemic. And if I were to pass along one criticism, it's a criticism pretty much of all public education over the last couple of years, is that I really do think that in an effort to take care of this and to take care of that and to take care of this and to take care of that, the emphasis has been on the wrong syllable. And that it's time for us to get back to some of the teaching and learning aspects. Our core business is about teaching and learning. Now, we have a lot of operational things that are really important, and there's a lot of really important things that we need to do so that kids can learn. And I'll give you an example. Kids that are hungry don't learn. Kids that are not feeling safe don't learn. So those are critically important things to help us with the learning environment, but they can't be the goal in isolation. They have to be strategies that lead to the goal of learning, if that makes sense. So with that, I want to acknowledge that I am not the person who knows the things. You all are the people who know the things. So this is really an opportunity for me to hear from you, and if you got a question, that's great too. But I really have two prompts that I would like to know a lot about. And if you were motivated enough to give up an hour of family time plus some drive time to hang out with me for an evening, you have something that is important to you that you would like to say or something that you would like to hear. And I want to hear that from you. So I've got really two prompts for you if you would like to share. What is working well in the district and what needs attention in terms of operational issues, like my kid's bus is always late or my kid's bus is always on time. Just kidding, I know that's not true. Or what should be done differently to improve our academic results? And I do want to hear from you what some of your suggestions are. Don't get me wrong, I've seen a lot in the last 3 months that I've been here. I certainly have a lot of ideas and a lot of suggestions, but I also want to hear from you as to what some of your ideas and some of your suggestions might be. We got a lot going on. So this is really simple. This is kind of like the open night mic part of this. I've got two microphones right here. We'll switch back and forth based on who wants to talk or who's in front of a microphone. Yeah, come on up. And if I could ask that if you've got a question, that's great. I'll do my best to answer it. But I'm really more interested in hearing what you have to say and what your ideas might be on how to make us a little bit better. Go for it.
Hello. We chatted briefly before it started. So I have a daughter in elementary school and a son who's about to go into kindergarten next year. And the administration at our school touts the programs for students that need additional support, whether it's English as a second language or kids that are academically behind. On multiple occasions, we've talked to the principal and said, well, what does the school do for kids that are at level or need to be challenged? And the principal said multiple times that the school does not have the resources to assist children at or above level, and parents can volunteer their time and come in during the school day to teach the children who need that type of support. And before I actually get into the question, as I said earlier, so this is not just an elementary school. I have a friend who actually just moved to Urbana because her middle school student was not challenged. They did not have honors classes anymore, and he was falling behind because he was not the focus of education as well. So she unfortunately moved out of our neighborhood to Frederick County. So what is the county doing to help and challenge kids that may speak English as their main language or need additional challenge? How is the county helping those students?
Well, I'll do my best to answer as much as I can. I can give you a much better answer at the elementary level than I can at the secondary level, mainly because that's what I know right now. And I hope to give you a more thorough answer in the months that come. I will say that there's two really significant academic focus points this year. This won't surprise anyone: literacy and mathematics. I do believe that great instructional strategies help everybody and that a rising tide can raise all ships. That being said, we do need to be responsible for differentiating our approach to instruction for lots of different levels of learners, sometimes that occupy the same space in the same classroom. So at the elementary level, I am pleasantly surprised to come here with decisions already made that I think are really a giant step in the right direction. And one of those was the adoption of a literacy curriculum that incorporates elements of, and this is worth a Google now, the science of reading. And if you are unfamiliar with this, it's a focus that is stemmed in the best way I can describe it is almost like braiding different literacy strategies together to build phonemic awareness a lot earlier in young people. So I'm going to date myself here, parents. If I were to say hooked on phonics worked for me, you might say, yes, it probably did. But that's really what it is an earlier adoption of phonics so that children develop this notion of concept of word, and they understand word development and then can develop comprehension a little bit quicker. So from an elementary standpoint, I think we're pointed in the right direction. This is in full implementation for the first time this fall. I got to see it in action the first week of school. One of the most impressive things that I saw, actually, I made it to almost 60 schools the first week of school. I was at a bunch of places for about 30 minutes at a time, and just even in 30 minutes, I was able to go and do spot checks in some classrooms, even on the first day of class, and I saw literacy instruction that was aligned to getting our kids within the scope of the curriculum. I would see the conclusion of one lesson, go to another elementary school, and see that lesson continued as it was scoped out in the curriculum, which was a positive step. So I think that's a positive step. From a mathematics standpoint, I think we have a lot of work to do. I think we have a lot of work to do in terms of when and how we scope one course, and that one course is Algebra 1. Algebra 1, in so many ways, is the gatekeeper. I have a trivia question for you. What do you call every math class before Algebra 1? Pre-algebra. So kindergarten math is, third grade math is, yeah. So effectively, it's the pathways that lead to algebra and the pathways that lead out of algebra, and how we scope for that, I think needs some work and needs some attention. So I have a much better answer for you at the elementary level in terms of what I think will help. I think that there's a long way for us to go to create continuity between what's happening in one elementary school versus what's happening in another elementary school, which is happening in another elementary school. And I think that the recent literacy curriculum adoption actually helps with that. I don't think it solves that, but I think it does help in a lot of ways. I have a lot of concerns about continuity with some other things, and I don't think we're there yet secondarily. Yep.
I was asking how you challenged children who mastered that. You're telling me how you get kids up to level.
Yeah.
How do you challenge? Because the school says they don't have resources.
And I would say that it's on us to differentiate our approach to instruction better.
My name's George Korzeniewski. I've got 6 children, 2 of which have been through this high school, and one that's attending now. And Montgomery County's done an incredible job for us, for our family. I've been on the same street for 34 years. But things have changed, and some of the things have changed. One is proximity. So we're sent to schools, our home schools, we pass 4 or 5 schools to get to the school we're sent to. And then there's people coming other directions as well. So we have these island schools that are set up. So question I have for you, one is, where are you at with proximity? When you say community, it's very hard to have community when you're sent to places where the kids can't go back and play and be with each other and do things. And as a parent trying to volunteer, it's almost impossible because it's 45 minutes back and forth, kids sitting in the bus. And the people that are, the populations that they're trying to create, and it does seem like there's almost a social engineering going on, is they evolve without trying because people move out to the country. This is a very diverse area. So I guess I see zero gain, but a lot of, you say what's best for the students. I don't see that. So one question is, where are you at with proximity? And then the other question is totally different from that. So keep the, okay.
Well, I'll do my best to answer. I will say that with opening a couple of high schools, that there will definitely have to be boundary study.
Sure.
I think kind of one of the bigger issues that we'll have to reconcile sooner rather than later is what programmatic offerings are we having in different parts of the county, and is there an access point for kids to have a really wide variety and rich variety that isn't an hour and a half down the road by bus, because
Sure.
that's a significant haul.
Yeah.
I think that there's room for improvement in boundaries just in general, because we have overcapacity schools and undercapacity schools, and I think that there definitely is at least worth it for us to look at some of those changes. But I think any time that we can improve proximity, we can improve transportation, we can improve a whole host of things. I would say, but the background to that is maybe we have some concerns in terms of programmatic offerings and making sure that kids have access to a lot of different things.
In this particular case, there's 3 buses on a country road that pass each other, and there's a shortage of bus drivers. And so to me, I scratch my head and go, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out how to solve the problem. But with that said, the other question is one that's totally different subject. Financial literacy, personal financial literacy. It's not required by the state of Maryland, but there are counties, and it's left to the county to make the decision. And so what's happened in Montgomery County is they say, hey, well, you should have it, but not required. And if you don't require personal finance, just one semester for students, then typically girls don't take it, and people that don't take it, it just teach them how to do insurance, how to do a mortgage, just simple things that people need with life. But it's a basic requirement that 26 states require that students take it. And I guess my question to you is, where are you at with financial literacy and required financial literacy for students?
I'm a little bit of a weird anomaly. I'm an educator with an MBA, so I kind of go in the yes to financial literacy space.
Yeah.
I will say that I'm coming from a state where my last school district was in Virginia, and it is a requirement in Virginia to have financial literacy. I will say everything is as good and as bad as it's taught. So it's not enough, I don't think, to have a requirement for financial literacy as much as to have a really well-taught financial literacy course.
And I guess my point is, if it's not required, people don't take it, and then when they if people look back and they say consumerism is, oh, that's the best class I ever took in high school. But if you don't require it to be taken, people don't have a necessary skill that they will need all the rest of their life.
So you have met my youngest child.
Okay. And I'd help teach it. So I mean, it's a great thing. All right, thank you.
Very good. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Christina Becker. I'm here to talk about environmental health and safety, which has been a big issue at Poolesville High School over the last couple of years. And just this morning, I took some interesting video of the demolition. There were huge dust clouds in the air with students walking to the gym, to the fields for gym class. And we were promised in the spring that no demolition was going to happen while the kids were in school. So I want to hear your reaction about that. It seems like the health and safety plans have been completely thrown out the window with this project. There were 60 days of asphalt fumes exposure, carcinogens, in 2023.
That's a good start. How about I go from there?
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me. I did not know that, but that is helpful. And you and I have exchanged a couple of emails, so that's been helpful too. So one of the things that I think that should be on the top of everybody's mind is safety. Yes? Just quick show of hands. What's that number one priority, right? Should be. Okay. If I were to challenge anybody to think a little bit differently about safety, this is a great example. Because there's lots of different dimensions to safety, not just what's in the headlines about national and even local events that are really, really concerning. There are issues with emotional and social safety that our kids are experiencing on a pretty regular basis as well. And there are also issues with environmental safety. And so I think that MCPS has a really great opportunity right now to have like a little bit of a turning point in terms of, one, how it views safety, and then two, what is it doing to follow up on safety, following protocols, also responding when you see something that's not above board. So appreciate you calling it out. I know that I'll certainly follow up, but still learning about that myself.
I really would like to, get the answer to the questions that I've had for months, that I have forwarded you. What were my kids exposed to back in February in the gym, and also
I'd love to know
about the
too.
fumes.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Helen Trainer. I have 5 kids that have gone through MCPS, 2 that have graduated, 2 that are here right now, freshman and a senior, and 1 who's in 3rd grade. To answer your questions, what's working well in the district and what needs attention, I really feel that MCPS is good at addressing issues with the kids, but what really needs attention is how you're able to address them. So, for example, we've had kids in our family that have needed IEPs or that have had bullying incidents, and my husband and I are both college educated, have flexible jobs. English is our first language, and it's extremely difficult to get anything done. So I can't imagine what it's like for people that we know that don't have the background that we have, or don't speak English as a first language, or don't have a sense of community where they can call someone and say, hey, your kid has an IEP. How did you get it? I'm asking these questions, I'm filling out these forms, I'm having meeting after meeting, and I'm not getting anywhere. So I feel like we say we do a lot for kids, and when you can finally get in the system and the pieces of paper and talk to the magic people, it can happen for children, but it should never be as stressful and difficult and frustrating as it is. We constantly talk about transparency, we talk about accountability, but we don't really actually solve those two problems. So I know that's a lot to put at your feet for operations, but I think the biggest thing you could do for parents and for children, and frankly for the teachers and the admin, is streamline the processes to get help. Whether that's social emotional help, whether that's for bullying, whether that's for intimidation from a staff member, whether that's from an IEP or a 504, it really should not be as hard as it is. And for academics, I will say my 5 kids are all different, right? I had some leaving high school with 30 college credits and some that probably won't take any advanced classes, right? Every child is different. What I will say, though, is I agree with you. There's not a lot to be done for those 75th percentile kids. If they don't have a discipline problem, if they don't have an attention disorder, if they're kind of like hitting the milestone, they're forgotten. That 75th percentile kid could be a 98th percentile kid, but they're just kind of left there to float because somebody else either needs extra support or somebody else is, in your face demanding that they get in this AP class or this honors class. So I am happy that we have phonics-based literacy. I had to fight to get my now 9th grader that as a support when she was struggling with reading in elementary. So Orton Gillingham saved that situation for us. And so I'm so happy that after years of advocacy, that's happening for every child, because every child in this county will now be allowed to read. And if you can read, you can learn anything. But it shouldn't have taken from when she was in kindergarten to in 9th grade. It should just never have taken that long. So I really feel like what the county is doing good is doing that, listening to staff, listening to teachers, listening to parents about my tutors using this, or staff that went and got that OG training on their own with their own money, bringing it back to reading specialists, bringing that to the admin. But at the same time, you have these kids that could be doing so much better if somebody developed it, right? And I know in our school, like in Poolesville Elementary, we constantly have parent volunteers coming in to help teachers with that. But that's also an area where people have flexible jobs. There's stay-at-home moms. Like, there are other families that don't have that luxury to come in and volunteer their time, whether it's home-based resources, whether you expand that online tutoring program that we had during COVID, something to give these kids that I feel like, C's get degrees, right? There's more CEOs in the world with C's in college than anything else. So that 75th to 80th percentile kid, that's the kid that's gonna be not being afraid to fail and worked hard and persevered. I just feel like you need to do something for those children.
Yeah, the great comments. Thank you. Yeah, clap it up for her. Come on, she did a great job. Yeah. There's two little tidbits, like perfect world, right? If we could have everything the way that we want it, we would be assessing our kids, on their achievement and what they know, but we'd also be assessing them on their rate of growth. So I think that the future of what this looks like in MCPS and really in public education is effectively looking at two measures of success: your achievement levels and then your growth levels and how much you're growing. Because here's the deal. You could be getting straight A's, hundreds on every test, but if you're not growing, we're kind of missing the boat, and we're not providing adequate supports for you. Or maybe you're growing leaps and bounds, but your deficits are so high that you're not quite understanding, or you're at grade level, or you're always missing that piece. We really do need to find that sweet spot where our kids are both performing at a level that we are satisfied with and that they are meeting expectations, and then they're also growing at a rate that's advancing them each year and that they're learning at a reasonable pace. Good news. We do have a couple of assessments that do those things. I'm not somebody who gets all excited about over-testing our kids. I think they already take too many tests as it is. I think there's something like 11 school days that we don't assess the kids or something like that out of 172. That's a lot. That's a lot. And I think we could probably get a little bit tighter in that space. I'll give you just one really quick example before we move on to some other comments. Right now, MCPS looks at like about 5 different measurements, and none of them align. So your kid's performance on a test, your kid's performance on a state test, your kid's performance on a growth test, and their grades, they don't align. That's a huge problem. That's probably something that we really do need to address in a really significant way. Go for it.
First, welcome.
Thank you.
This is a complex county, and we appreciate that you are here to help us and to listen to all of us. We all have different concerns. We all want to help. You're a human being. We don't expect you to fix all our problems right now, but the only thing that I think it contributes to learn and growth is the feeling safe and a safe environment, and I think that has been not addressed properly the last couple of years. So that's all we're asking for, is just so the educators are able to address issues, the root causes. They're great at responding. They are really responsive. Everybody emails you right back. But the issues, the root causes don't get addressed, and problem persists through years, and that has the consequences on the kids' learning. So that's all I ask, is safety, cameras, so we can be accountable. If my kid does something wrong, I want to know. I want them to show me, so I can correct at home too. And it's the same for everyone. So we all continue in our small community that we all love each other and do well. So that's all I ask you. Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, clap it up for her too. I'm sure that's a pretty consistent theme. I got a couple of things to add to that really quick. The first thing that I would say is you don't have to go far at MCPS to see cameras, because I see 4 or 2 right there, a couple right there, a couple right there. And this is the first time I've been in this room, and that's a part of our world that we live in today. I would love to tell you that instruction is our #1 priority. Our good friends at Fox 5 were here earlier this evening just to catch me on tape so they could get a quote about safety, and that's okay. That's a part of it. I want to make 2 apologies to you. The first apology is, I'm sorry if we, and I say this on behalf of the entire school system, if we haven't always taken the partnership with parents as seriously as we needed to in terms of keeping the kids safe and making sure that all of our staff members, our students and visitors to the schools have a sense of safety and feel safe through open communication. So I'm sorry if that hasn't happened. And I want to apologize in advance, because here's what's going to happen. We are going to mess up at some point in the future in terms of communication, following a protocol, doing something wrong. I promise you that that is an issue of the head and not of the heart, and that the folks that are showing up to work, they're not doing any of these things intentionally, and no one that I work with comes to work trying to harm young people. They don't do that. That's a good thing, and there's still a lot of learning to be done. I can tell you right now, I'm pretty excited and pretty optimistic about leveraging Chief Jones's experience with our safety and security team. Already, I can tell you that he's added tremendous value in terms of seeing things that we historically haven't been great at seeing. Looking at how we have continuity between safety plans between schools. There are some schools that are knocking it out of the park, other schools that do need some adjustment, and we're already learning in that space. And then there's some really low-hanging fruit that we can make some adjustments to, and we already are well underway in doing these things. And I'm going to tell you what the low-hanging stuff is before we get to the big stuff. The low-hanging stuff are things like cameras and making sure that we have functioning doors with locks and things like that. That's low-hanging fruit. The best and most effective strategy for campus safety. Does anyone know what it is? Any guesses? What is it? Kids. Community, kids. Cameras is really effective. It's actually communication and relationships. The relationships that adults have in the school with young people, if they are positive, if the expectations are clear and the communication is good, the school is usually safer. And there's a higher probability of school safety when those things are in the mix. So when you have school principals and assistant principals and school staff that are really heavily invested in building great relationships with young people, that usually translates into a much safer school environment. So that's something that we focus on too. Now let's talk about the big ticket stuff. We are looking at some pretty significant and sophisticated countermeasures. I'm sure you've heard about them in the news, things like weapons detections and whatnot. I can promise you that those very expensive things have a very long runway in terms of a process, that even if we decided to go in that direction tomorrow, you're talking about almost a year's worth of implementation, just because there's training involved, there's installation, there's cost, and a whole lot of other factors. Please know that that sort of thing is on the table and is definitely being considered and talked about, because we see these issues as being really significant. As effective as some of those things can be, not are, but can be, and I'll tell you a not great story about one of those in a minute, the relationships and the communication is actually the far most effective way of keeping a school safe. I do have a friend who's a superintendent who implemented a pretty sophisticated weapons detection system in a neighboring school system, and I said, hey, how's it going? Can I come and check it out? And she says, of course you can come check it out. Just whatever you do, don't bring a 3-ring binder. And I was like, uh-oh. She said, I know, uh-oh. So, the technology has some ways to go, and that's okay too. We don't have to be the first at everything to be the most effective at something. And I think that all of us are interested in solutions that work, not the ones that don't. There's a lot of dimensions that we're concerned about in the safety space. Weapons are one element of that. I will say that a positive school environment tends to lead to other positive outcomes too. We had a very, very, very good start to the school year. A very good start to the school year. The number of suspensions that we had this year in the first couple of weeks relative to the number of suspensions that we had last year was 4 times last year what we had this year. That's a very positive sign. That's a huge step in the right direction. What I hope is that we can maintain the momentum that we already have going on. We have schools that don't have any suspensions. It's kind of how it should be. We're not in the business to suspend kids from school, but we're also not going to overlook bad behavior either. So there is a healthy mix in terms of making sure we're holding everybody accountable to the expectations that we set, that we clearly communicate what those expectations are, and that we spend some time reinforcing those expectations throughout the year in a really positive way that builds relationships and not necessarily tears them down. So thank you. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for being here today.
Of course.
And most welcome as our new superintendent. I was ready to shoot, but then you asked what's working well. So I'll tell you, as someone that has been born and raised abroad, I think there are many things working great. I'm very grateful for kids like mine that starting in 4th grade were able to take the advanced class, and we had 26 of those kids in our school here in Poolesville. We had 26 kids, sir, that were able to take 5th grade on 4th grade, and then now it's, and 6th in 5th, and now they're taking AIM and middle school. So, I wish that, I'm not sure if, you have a way to get there with other schools. And it's the same thing with the point that brings me today, which it's connected to what you said. You said we have to look at the whole county. And so in academics, maybe there is some catch up to do, but I'm just grateful for what we do have here. On the other hand, I'm somebody that didn't know anything about AAP with my daughter and ADHD. I'm still navigating it. It hasn't been easy. But what I really want is to have more connection between the operations and the academics. So you asked two different places. I know places and schools in the South County that have very good connection between the two. Right. And I'll just put an example. So there's schools that have implementation of composting, that they're involved in the lunch that they make, that they have their kids be aware of the food waste reduction. And so here, being in the agricultural reserve, we have 2 elementaries, 1 middle school, 1 high school. And I've been for 2 years advocating as part of the MCCPTA Green Schools to try to get some composting going. Nice. And not only composting, I give webinars with the MCPS-MD about how to reduce the waste from the moment you make the lunch, all sorts of things that we can do. But it's true that everything that everybody throws in the county, it's coming to the incinerator. And it's less than 6 miles from us. So some people were talking about environmental safety. As somebody that has schools in DC where they were shooting they were shooting adults in front of our kids in the school, I have never felt safer in the schools in Montgomery in terms of physical safety. But in terms of environmental safety, I cannot get any of the parents to grapple of what our kids are breathing. So if we try to just start solving it, I really would like this school to be the example, and all of our schools in the Ag Reserve to do something very simple that schools in the South County are already doing, which is doing proper composting, proper recycling, but also proper food waste prevention. This school here, which is leader in the nation, this high school, have the capacity to integrate to their global magnet program, on-site composting, anaerobic digestion, vermicomposting, and other things to be an example and to take us to the next level to inspire other schools, not just from the South, but also schools that have less resources. So I brought a map for these.
Oh. Thank you.
Say that I've already done research on federal and state grants, even county grants that can make this happen. But it's been 2 years I've been emailing people in the high school, and I'm sure they're busy with plenty of stuff on their new building and all the other stuff, but I haven't received a response. So if you could please help me, help you, and help everyone in the county with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Oh, man, fantastic. On a lot of different levels. I'll tell you a funny story after this if I get a couple minutes. That's great.
Hi, good to see you again, and thank you for coming. My name is Heidi Smith, and I have a Poolesville graduate, a senior here, and I have a former MBA student that is no longer with MCPS as a result. So to answer these questions of what is working well, you have a fantastic group of teachers. They are amazing people who really try their best to meet their students, and these students are at various levels. What needs attention is the communication between Central and people actually in the schools, and therefore the families, like Helen was mentioning. A perfect example is MVA families. All of us aren't settled. There are people who still don't have schools. Their children aren't being educated, or they've had to move from the state and from the county. But all of that could be just streamlined with better communication and outreach. And what could be done additionally is how can us as parents join the board and join you and all the people making decisions for the operations and for budget for next year? How can we join you in that to make sure that things like the MVA specifically, or in an elaboration or the next step of your new blended program, like how can we be in that and ensure that it's in the budget for next year?
Yeah, great question. And I will say that your timing is excellent because the budget season is kind of all the time. The second that we are finished with one budget, we start the process for the next budget. So thank you, and thank you. It's good to see you again for sure. And a difficult thing to talk about when you have a program that is beloved and is successful for a group of kids, and then it gets cut for financial reasons, and kind of last minute at that. communications were terrible and not great. And I'm very sorry that went down the way that it did, because it didn't need to go that way, for sure. In terms of the budget process, here's how our money is spent. 90% of the school system's budget is spent on two things: how many people work for the school system and how much we pay them. I will tell you that is a lot higher of a percentage than a lot of other school systems. It's usually an 80-20 split, not a 90-10 split. So what does the other 10% get spent on? The other 10% gets spent on everything operational, whether that is your bus transportation, materials and supplies, different services that are offered to the school or that we contract with. That is the smallest part of the budget. Ironically, that's the part that we spend the most time focused on, happens to be the smallest part. That being said, again, MCPS is a little bit of an outlier because the school system split on things operational versus personnel is really closer to 80-20 in most other places, but here it's 90-10. So what does that look like? It makes a very well-financed school system feel as though it's not very well financed because of the little things. The things that make kind of the wheels go in terms of everything from fixing the air conditioning in an old school, of which that's a problem. I mean, we've got some old schools and we have some air conditioning issues. That certainly is an issue, to making sure that there are adequate resources in the classroom and whatnot. Same goes for programs. And I would say that any kind of advocacy is welcome advocacy in terms of making sure that your corner of the budget or your interest area is being spoken for. So, I think that you're doing that, and I think that that's helpful. But I think it also needs to fit into a bigger picture of where do we want the school system to go and what do we want the school system to accomplish. I think that there are a lot of different avenues in which that we could explore that we don't explore as a consequence of that, because we seem to be pretty cash poor in terms of some operational things. So that's kind of where we are right now. It seems like a big number when you see it in the news, $3.3 billion, but I can tell you divided by 25,000 employees, it goes pretty quick. Divided by 1,500 buses, it goes pretty quick. And we're in the millions of miles that get driven each year, the millions of food meals that get served. We're the largest restaurant chain in Montgomery County. We're open for 2 meals a day. And sometimes that sort of thing also gets overlooked too. We're much bigger than Ride-On. We're almost the same size as Metrobus, and we're the school system in terms of the miles that we travel, in terms of the surface, but we're not financed like either of those things. So I'd say any advocacy is good advocacy, and I'd say keep it coming and be a part of budget discussions, because there'll be a lot of open opportunities for that. And make sure your voice is heard in terms of goals that you would like to accomplish. I think it is silly to say we're all about literacy and then not invest in literacy, or we're all about different learning opportunities and then not invest in learning opportunity. So I think being crystal clear about goals that you have as a parent, or goals that you want for your students, like, I really want my kid to have access to XYZ program, but it's on this part of the county but not that part of the county. That's a pretty specific ask. I think that sort of thing is good advocacy. Yes, sir.
My name's Derek Longbreak. I have an 8th grader and a 12th grader and a graduate as well.
Awesome.
Something that I think that's working well is I'm on a board of an organization called the Giving Square, which runs a program in all the community schools that ends up helping all of those students give a $1,000 grant to a local nonprofit that helps kids. So that element of the blueprint getting actioned and money being put in a different direction from academics, to me, actually, that's something that's building our civic society and civic community is a real positive.
Yeah.
And so I hope you'll get a chance to see and participate in that amazing program. Something that I think could be working better. I'm losing my train of thought here, unfortunately.
You're fine. You said blueprint, and that kind of like set the whole world in a different direction there. There's lots to talk about with there, so.
The thing is that you mentioned meals. In Poolesville, you cannot get meals in the summer. The school district has a local service organization, WUMCO, Western Upper Montgomery County Help, has been trying to do that, and there's just been roadblock after roadblock. Oh, well, you travel to Clarksburg, and you have to be on site with your student while you eat. So a parent would have to, even if they're working from home, have to drive to Clarksburg, sit and eat on site, and then drive back. There's a rural school, but the rural school is not in Poolesville. It's outside Poolesville. And so you could do that with the rules. You could have the meals there, but you can't actually have them in Poolesville. And there's people that need, even in a wealthier community, that do need food. And because of the different rules and the following them of the school district, there was no food support, and the community had to rally around themselves to provide for food insecure families in our community over the summer.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. The food insecurity issue is a very real one in this community. So there are 211 official schools in Montgomery County Public Schools, and every single school in Montgomery County has students that access the federal free lunch program. Every single one. There isn't a single school that doesn't have that as an issue. So food insecurity is an issue that really is in every corner of the county, and it's represented in every single school district, and it's a real challenge. So I will say we take that very seriously. I'm glad you brought that up. A million years ago, I was a superintendent of a very small rural school district, and in that very small rural school district, it was the worst in terms of food insecurity because of access points and transportation to even get to distribution spots, and that seems to be a consistent issue here. There's ways around that, and I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Okay, we'll take the last two. No, it's okay. We got you. Go ahead. And I got a way for you to contact me afterwards too. So.
Hi, Tom. It's Lynn Cohen with the Fair Access Committee. Good to see you in person finally. In our budget letter this year, we actually talk about that, what Derek just mentioned, so I think I shared it with you, and you probably have it. But my daughter taught in the school system for quite a few years. Unfortunately, she became ill, and so she had to retire. But she was a pre-K teacher, and one of the things she talked to me about was her frustration about having to teach so much. The school system is focused on the tests and on learning your ABCs and the rote learning stuff. And she said there are three things that kids really need to learn, and if they learn those, then they will be equipped to learn later. Patience, which means doing it over and over again, that's what you have to do. And teaching them to do that is really hard. Curiosity and teamwork and cooperation. She said if they get those in the early years, they're probably going to be okay, even if they don't know their ABCs when they leave pre-K. But she constantly got that pressure to go back for the test and all the other things. And the kindergarten teachers loved her because she did focus on that, even though she got punished for it. So I just really want to put that in, that I think that's, for early learning, that's a critical component.
Life skills. And if you're wondering what gives us the highest return on investment for learning in public schools, it's actually nothing in the K-12 environment. It's investments in pre-K. Investments in pre-K have a huge impact on our kids. Now, I will say this. Every time I visit a pre-K or a kindergarten classroom, I have a little short lesson, and it's the three things that I think they should bring to school every day. You want to know what they are? Yeah. Listening ears, gentle hands, and a sweetheart. Those are the things that they need to bring every day. And guess what? The kids nail it. They get the lesson like that, of course. Go ahead. You're going to be our last little comment for this evening, and then we'll cut bait.
Hi, my name is Kelly Huang. I live in Poolesville. I have 3 kids in Poolesville High School. and we've been in Poolesville throughout their entire education. I would say things have gone very, very well. I don't, academically, things are great for our family. I realize other people may have needs. I don't have anything to add to that. I do have something I wanted to talk about on the operations side of things, and I have brought this forward to our principal and also to the Board of Education, and I figure why not talk about it here. I want to know what you think about cell phones in schools.
Yes.
We have a policy. It's not working. I can tell you that right now. It is not working. Talk to the teachers, and you'll see it's not working. And I want to say, there are several points about why I can make to you to look to, including the kids. If you refute this, please address these points, okay? Why is the U.S. Surgeon General not accurate when he says that we should keep kids, be careful with kids with cell phones and social media? U.S. Surgeon General has come out and made a statement about this. A landmark book published by Jonathan Haidt, New York Times bestseller for The Anxious Generation, as well as Coddling of the American Mind, has laid out a plan for us to deal with this. 4 things. One of the things he thinks we can do first and most effectively is to get rid of cell phones in school. Mark Ehrlich, our county executive, even came out, I could quote him, he said, "As a former school teacher who was in the classroom before these devices were ubiquitous, I cannot understand how we have allowed phones to become such a big distraction in the classroom. In visits I have made to schools since then, I have seen how disturbing it is to watch kids easily tune out of class through phones." So we know it's a distraction to learning. I would also say, to the points made here tonight about safety, when did we decide we could put pictures of people we take without asking their permission? And we also, schools have social media accounts, which makes it hard for parents to say no to their kids also having social media accounts. It makes it our job harder to make our own decisions at home. And so I would just.
That's a pretty good start.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Very gentlemanly of you, gentlemen. Can I tell them about that? Okay. So these 3 fine gentlemen up here have actually been working on a project that they shared with me, and it is a project where they are developing an electronic reporting system of when something is not operational within a school. So they've geocoded the schools in the county, and so that they can report when an electrical socket is not working, when there are not menstrual supplies in a restroom, when what other things? Yeah, just closed bathrooms. If there's a closed bathroom, that they can report all of these things utilizing some of the technology. So I'm gonna say this with a grain of salt. So don't get up. Yeah, I know. Give these guys a round of applause. This is pretty impressive. I think that a lot of the advent of using the technology came from a great place of, oh my gosh, there's more technology in your hand than was on the space shuttle, right? So, this belief that if we unlock and allow young people to harness this technology, that great things are gonna happen with learning. And oh my gosh, some things have happened with learning, for sure. Some great, some not so great. And some really, really deleterious things have happened as well. The book that she's talking about is worth a read. And I got to tell you, as the parent of 5 kiddos myself, I'm an empty nester officially this year for the first time. Very excited. My wife is less excited. I'm thrilled. I really wish that I had read this book several years ago. It's very good. Yes, it just came out. It wasn't even in print several years ago, but it's worth a read. It's called The Anxious Generation. Some tidbits to kind of keep in mind is about the changes in brain chemistry that some of our young people have experienced while connected to some of their personal devices. And it's not just connecting to the personal device, it's also accessing social media and some other things. Okay. This is not as one-dimensional of an issue as we probably want it to be. Like, why can't we just ban cell phones? Well, I promise you, any kind of policy decision that is dictatorial from the top of just ban it is kind of doomed for a very rocky path, let alone an early failure if it's not kind of rolled out in a really effective way. And there's a lot of explanation as to why this needs to be the way that it is. The most recent school district where I was superintendent in Virginia actually banned cell phones very successfully. And it was great. I'll be honest with you, it was fantastic. For my last year there, we enjoyed a very distracted, free learning environment, but there were some drawbacks, and there were some things that needed to kind of be kept in mind. The first thing that was really important to keep in mind is there were some withdrawal effects from some of our young people, and there were some personnel challenges in terms of maintaining kind of equilibrium and reestablishing some relationships with some of our kids. So I could make a compelling argument that for a very short period of time, a couple of months, our schools were maybe less safe while we were kind of going through that adjustment period. Eventually it got better, and the world kept spinning, surprise, surprise. Students then used their cell phones after school hours, and we don't have control over that. And so, you know, even though we might have control over the 7-hour locus of control during the school day, there's another whole set of hours that we don't really have control over. A pretty significant amount of time that we don't control. That a lot of things can go wrong or be derailing of the things that happen in school. A lot of the significant drama that happens as a result of telecommunications actually happens outside of the schoolhouse and gets brought into school. So, you know, I just would caution anyone who thinks that this is a panacea or a silver bullet. It's not. But anything that we can do to improve learning environments, that's really what we should be doing, and taking a hard look at that. At the very root of anything that we have in schools, we really can control two things, right? The first thing that we can control is these really great and memorable learning experiences. You guys will never forget being involved in a project that's tangentially related to schools, where you designed a software that could help schools identify issues that were going on in the school, right? You will never forget that as long as you live. I bet you the students that put together these very impressive academic posters that are hanging on the wall will never forget the research projects that they were involved in to create those really spectacular research projects. Those really memorable learning experiences, the more of those that we create a rich fabric that create our school experience and really make our kids who they become as adults. The second thing that we can control are the learning environments. When things are working well and you've got a nice learning space and you are taking care of students' personal well-being and safety and even environmental safety, these are things that really improve learning outcomes on a really significant scale. One of those things happens to be distractions and how we manage distractions. The last little piece that I'll add about cell phones is it's also not a zero cost change, and that is something that we do have to kind of plan for and budget for and be prepared for, and have to ask ourselves when we make a lot of priorities in our budget is this priority more important than that priority, and that priority more important than this priority? I think I know where you stand on that. Yeah. And I share some of those priorities. So with that, I do want to throw out that if you had something that was burning through your mind tonight and you didn't get a chance to share it, we have a mechanism for that. And there's a QR code and a screen that if you want to share some additional thoughts and comments, we'll post those thoughts and comments. The only thing that I ask that you do is if you got an axe to grind against an individual or something along those lines, you refrain from that so that I don't have to redact it. I am interested in that sort of thing, but you could shoot me an email if you really want to talk about solving a problem with an individual or a personnel or something along those lines. But I am very interested in the things that are concerning to you. This will help me in setting my priorities in terms of what I choose to focus on and the things that rise to the top in the next 6 months or so. and carry me into the next school year after that. I hope to be a really good steward of your trust and to earn it every day. That's not to say that we won't make mistakes. I promise you that we will. But please know that we'll learn from those mistakes and hopefully become a school system that gets better and better every day. So with that, I want to thank you for giving up an hour of your time and really appreciate your attention this evening.